67 crew was really an exceptional group of men. And I would like to ask them to stand again. Some of them aren't here tonight, obviously, but I know the bowman, Mike, and hold your applause, but I'd like to introduce him again. Mike Harris, bow. Bob Newman, 5-man. Pat Moran, 7. Eric Johnson, 6. And pardon? Stroke. And Pat Moran, 7. Eric Johnson, stroke. And I think that's it. Yeah. Okay.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Who wants to hear from an 80-year-old talking about something that happened 50 years ago?
I do. We do. That's why you're here. We do.
Anyway, give him a round of applause. I think maybe in my short tenure here, two of the most important things that we accomplished was, one, we established a relationship with Orange Coast Junior College. And Dave Grant, who was the coach then, and later became president of Orange Coast College, believe it or not, was an excellent coach. And I befriended him, or he befriended me, but it was a great relationship, and we were able to convince a lot of the undergraduates from Orange Coast Junior College to come to UCLA and take a chance on a new program. And I was convinced that those kids, if they hadn't gone to UCLA, would end up at Cal or Washington, and they'd be kicking our butts. So we put the full court press on Dave and Orange Coast and got a lot of these kids to come up to UCLA. And that was really the turning point. The second thing that we did, and I think maybe the most important thing that we accomplished, was I hired Paul Herrick, who also known as Rigger Brown. And I don't know where Rigger Brown came from, that name, but at any rate, you all know him as Rigger Brown. But he was really the glue that kept, I think, UCLA rowing going long after I left. And I can remember when he first came down to the shell house, in the old shell house, we had a couple of boats that were in bad repair, and one had about a 6-foot gash in the hull. And I put in a work order in the carpenter shop to have somebody come down and take a look at the boats and see if they could fix them. And about a week later, this guy came down with the paperwork in his hand, and he wasn't very happy that he'd been called out of the carpentry shop and had to come all the way down to Marina Del Rey and Bologna Creek to do some work. But we introduced ourselves to each other, and he didn't know a shell from a boat from anything. And he said, what do I got to do down here? And I said, well, we got this shell over here. It has a gash in it, 6 feet. Do you think you can fix it? And he went over there, and he started looking at the shell, and he started rubbing the hull. The boat was upside down, the hull up, in the racks, in the slings. And at that moment, I knew he was hooked, because he was taking his time to rub that cedar shell and the craftsmanship that went into it. And he turned around and he asked me, well, what kind of wood is this? Well, it's cedar, it's ash, it's maple, it's ironwood, all the components of a wooden shell. And he turned around to me after a few minutes without saying a word, and he said, yeah, I think I can do this. And the biggest challenge we had after that was to convince Paul to come out of the carpentry shop and become a full-time employee of the athletic department. And he was very reluctant to change from the carpentry shop to the athletic department and bet on the come that this program was going to survive. But we talked him out of it, or we talked him into it, I should say, and we gave him a little raise, which helped, and he came on board the next year full-time. And I've always thought that he was really the guy that made this thing happen. Because through all the ups and downs, and you guys have been through it all, know that he was always the mainstay, the anchor that kept it together. So I was very proud of the fact that we got Paul on board. As the years have passed, and I thought more about my experience in rowing, I've often thought that there must be a deeper meaning to the sport than just winning. And I've given that some thought in the last number of years. And I think that John Wooden had it pretty right when he talked about success and the self-satisfaction of knowing you've done your very best to become the best you're capable